Imagine a place on Earth where hell itself seemed to erupt from the ground. A landscape so scarred and battered that even a century later, it bears the deep, unforgettable wounds of war. This isn't a scene from a movie. This was the reality of Verdun in 1916. Today, we're journeying back in time to one of the longest, bloodiest, and most ferocious battles in human history, the Battle of Verdun. What drove two great nations, France and Germany, to pour so much of their youth and resources into this one small, fortified region? To understand Verdun, we have to understand the mind of the German chief of staff, Erich von Falkenhayn. By late 1915, the Western Front had stagnated into a brutal war of attrition. Trenches scarred the landscape from the Swiss border to the North Sea. Falkenhayn believed he had a plan to break the deadlock, a strategy as cynical as it was brutal. His target wasn't just a piece of land. It was the heart and soul of France. Verdun was more than a collection of forts. It was a national symbol, a bastion of French pride and resistance since the days of Attila the Hun. Falkenhayn gambled that France would defend it at any cost, that they would throw every available soldier into the fray to prevent its fall. His goal wasn't to capture Verdun, but to bleed the French army white. He envisioned a meat grinder, a place where he could use Germany's superior artillery to annihilate the French forces as they counterattacked. It was a strategy designed to break not just the French army, but the will of the French people. On the morning of February 21st, 1916, the storm broke. An artillery bombardment of unprecedented scale began. Over 1,200 German guns unleashed a hurricane of steel on the French positions. For 9 hours, more than 1,000,000 shells rained down, pulverizing trenches, vaporizing forests, and turning the frozen earth into a churning sea of mud and fire. The soldiers who survived the initial barrage described the sound as the end of the world. This was Trommelfeuer, drumfire, an experience so terrifying it could shatter a man's mind. Through this apocalyptic haze, the German stormtroopers advanced, armed with flamethrowers and grenades. They expected to find little resistance, but they underestimated the French poilu, the ordinary soldier. Despite being outnumbered and reeling from the bombardment, the French defenders fought back with incredible courage. The initial German gains were significant. They pushed forward, capturing key positions. The situation for the French was dire. Panic began to set in at the high command. Just as it seemed Verdun might fall, a new commander arrived, General Philippe Pétain. He was a master of logistics and defense, and his first actions were transformative. He famously declared, "Ils ne passeront pas." They shall not pass. This became the rallying cry for all of France. Pétain understood that this battle would be won not just by bullets, but by bread, water, and fresh troops. He immediately organized a single, vital supply route into Verdun, a narrow road that ran for 45 miles. This road would become legendary. It was named La Voie Sacrée, the sacred way. Day and night, a constant, perfectly orchestrated stream of trucks, some 3,500 of them every 24 hours, ferried men, ammunition, and supplies into the furnace of Verdun and carried the wounded out. The road was the artery that kept the heart of the defense beating. Without La Voie Sacrée, Verdun would have been strangled and forced to surrender within weeks. It was a logistical miracle that showcased the power of organization and national resolve. The battle devolved into a nightmarish struggle for inches of ground. Names like Fort Douaumont and Fort Vaux became synonymous with unimaginable suffering. Fort Douaumont, a massive underground fortress, was captured by a small German patrol early in the battle, a huge blow to French morale. The French would spend months and sacrifice thousands of lives trying to take it back. Inside these forts, men lived in darkness, surrounded by the constant thunder of explosions. The air was thick with the smell of damp concrete, unwashed bodies, and death. It was a subterranean hell. At Fort Vaux, the French garrison under Major Sylvain-Eugene Raynal held out for 6 days against relentless German attacks. They fought in pitch-black tunnels, their water ran out, and they were reduced to drinking their own urine. They finally surrendered only when they were physically unable to fight any longer. Their German adversaries were so impressed by their bravery that they allowed Major Raynal to keep his sword, a rare sign of respect in such a brutal conflict. The fighting wasn't just in the forts. It was in the shattered woods, the cratered fields, and the labyrinthine trenches. The landscape itself became an alien world. The constant shelling churned the earth so thoroughly that layers of soil, rock, and human remains were mixed together. Entire forests were reduced to splintered stumps. Villages like Fleury-de-Vent-d'Aumont were completely obliterated, changing hands 16 times during the battle. Today, nothing remains but a memorial chapel and markers showing where the bakery, the school, and the houses once stood. It is a ghost village, a permanent testament to the battle's destructive power. As the months dragged on, the nature of the battle changed. Falkenhayn's plan to bleed France white was backfiring. The German army was also being bled white in the very same meat grinder he had created. The losses were staggering on both sides. The German crown prince, who was in nominal command, saw his own armies being chewed up for no strategic gain. By the summer, the German offensive had lost its momentum. The launch of the British offensive on the Somme in July forced the Germans to divert troops and artillery away from Verdun, giving the French a crucial breathing space. Now, it was France's turn to counterattack. Under the command of the energetic General Robert Nivelle, the French began a series of meticulously planned offensives in the autumn of 1916. Using a new tactic called the creeping barrage, where artillery fire moved forward just ahead of the advancing infantry, they began to reclaim the lost ground. In a stunning victory in late October, French forces recaptured Fort Douaumont. By December, they had pushed the Germans back almost to their starting lines from February. The Battle of Verdun officially ended on December 18, 1916. After 10 long months of relentless fighting, the front lines were almost exactly where they had been at the start. But the cost was catastrophic. The battle had claimed over 700,000 casualties, killed, wounded, or missing. An average of 70,000 men fell each month. It was a demographic disaster for both nations. But Verdun was more than just numbers. It was a defining experience that seared itself into the national consciousness of France. It was a symbol of both ultimate sacrifice and indomitable resistance. The cry, "They shall not pass," came to represent the spirit of an entire nation refusing to break. For Germany, it was a strategic failure that cost them dearly and contributed to the downfall of Falkenhayn. Today, the battlefield of Verdun is a place of somber remembrance. The Douaumont ossuary stands as a silent, powerful memorial. It contains the mixed, unidentified remains of at least 130,000 French and German soldiers, collected from the battlefield. Through the small windows, you can see vast piles of human bones, a stark and humbling reminder of the price of war. The ground is still pocked with shell craters, and the forests, now regrown, still hide unexploded ordnance. It is a place where the past is not just remembered, it is physically present. The Battle of Verdun teaches us about the extremes of human endurance, the folly of attrition warfare, and the terrifying power of industrial conflict. It stands as a monument to the soldiers who endured the unendurable and a solemn warning to future generations about the true cost of war. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of one of history's most terrible battles. If you found this story compelling, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into the events that have shaped our world. We'll see you next time.